A mother of two and a domestic violence survivor. This is my story.
Join us this Sunday as we mark International Women's Day and answer the question, does religion contribute to the subjugation of women? Listen live from 10 a.m. on 95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
This Sunday on episode 10 of Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography.
She survived an abusive marriage, but now faces a dilemma. Divorce her husband to protect her sanity, or take him back to please a religious organization that frowns on divorce.
Hi, my name is Akina. I am an author, mother of two, and a domestic violence survivor. This is my story.
Join us this Sunday as we mark International Women's Day and answer the question, does religion contribute to the subjugation of women? Listen live from 10 a.m. on 95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
This Sunday on episode 10 of Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography.
She survived an abusive marriage, but now faces a dilemma. Divorce her husband to protect her sanity, or take him back to please a religious organization that frowns on divorce.
Hi, my name is Akina. I am an author, mother of two, and a domestic violence survivor. This is my story.
Join us this Sunday as we mark International Women's Day and answer the question, does religion contribute to the subjugation of women? Listen live from 10 a.m. on 95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
This Sunday on episode 10 of Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography.
She survived an abusive marriage, but now faces a dilemma. Divorce her husband to protect her sanity, or take him back to please a religious organization that frowns on divorce.
Hi, my name is Akina. I am an author, mother of two, and a domestic violence survivor. This is my story.
Join us this Sunday as we mark International Women's Day and answer the question, does religion contribute to the subjugation of women? Listen live from 10 a.m. on 95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
This Sunday on episode 10 of Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography.
She survived an abusive marriage, but now faces a dilemma. Divorce her husband to protect her sanity, or take him back to please a religious organization that frowns on divorce.
Hi, my name is Akina. I am an author, mother of two, and a domestic violence survivor. This is my story.
Join us this Sunday as we mark International Women's Day and answer the question, does religion contribute to the subjugation of women? Listen live from 10 a.m. on 95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
This Sunday on episode 10 of Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography.
She survived an abusive marriage, but now faces a dilemma. Divorce her husband to protect her sanity, or take him back to please a religious organization that frowns on divorce.
Hi, my name is Akina. I am an author, mother of two, and a domestic violence survivor. This is my story.
Join us this Sunday as we mark International Women's Day and answer the question, does religion contribute to the subjugation of women? Listen live from 10 a.m. on I-95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
This Sunday on episode 10 of Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography.
She survived an abusive marriage, but now faces a dilemma. Divorce her husband to protect her sanity, or take him back to please a religious organization that frowns on divorce.
Hi, my name is Akina. I am an author, mother of two, and a domestic violence survivor. This is my story.
Join us this Sunday as we mark International Women's Day and answer the question, does religion contribute to the subjugation of women? Listen live from 10 a.m. on I-95.5 FM or watch Does religion contribute to the subjugation of women? Listen live from 10 a.m. on I-95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
A national anthem should reflect a nation's people. Are we living the words of our anthem?
Only to come from there, but this one's serious. I don't want to interfere with the anthem, but I know it's supposed to be sacrosanct. But forgive me if I have a little problem. Is it culturally and socially relevant? Listen, if its history is not wrong, it was never our song. It was written for the Federation, which ran aground. Pakistani recalibrate it and adapt it for our use. This is why the text is nondescript and rather loose.
This Sunday on episode 10 of Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography.
She survived an abusive marriage, but now faces a dilemma. Divorce her husband to protect her sanity, or take him back to please a religious organization that frowns on divorce.
Hi, my name is Akina. I am an author, mother of two, and a domestic violence survivor. This is my story.
Join us this Sunday as we mark International Women's Day and answer the question, does religion contribute to the subjugation of women? Listen live from 10 a.m. on I-95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency.
This Sunday on episode 10 of Eye on Dependency, where every life is a biography.
She survived an abusive marriage, but now faces a dilemma. Divorce her husband to protect her sanity, or take him back to please a religious organization that frowns on divorce.
Hi, my name is Akina. I am an author, mother of two, and a domestic violence survivor. This is my story.
Join us this Sunday as we mark International Women's Day and answer the question, does religion contribute to the subjugation of women? Listen live from 10 a.m. on I-95.5 FM or watch live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page or YouTube channel. Eye on Dependency. We don't just share stories, we change lives.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on I-95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Good morning and welcome to I on Dependency. And thank you for joining us on I-95.5 FM and on our Facebook Live and YouTube Live.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you for your introduction, Natasha. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and welcome to I on Dependency. And we are now getting our chance to say, getting the opportunity to say Happy International Women's
Day to you, yes.
To all the women of Trinidad and Tobago who have, in some cases taken over reins of leadership and been doing a great job. So, especially those of you out there who continue to fight for Trinidad and Tobago as well, we thank you for your service.
Yes, and I've been seeing on social media some people questioning why we say happy in front of International Women's Day, given the fact that there's so many women and girls around the world who are suffering. And my response to that would be, it's supposed to be a celebratory day and event, because we are celebrating the advances that women and girls have made over the years, while we can still recognize that we have a lot of work to do, and there are many issues such as the one we're going to treat with today that need to be addressed in a serious way.
Yes, so we have in studio here a gracious guest who decided to sit with us, and I'll ask Natasha after we come back from this break. While those of you who are settling, if you're just joining us, those of you on Facebook and YouTube, we thank you very much for joining us this morning. And for those of you who will want something to do after lunch, and when I say want something to do, not after lunch, from this morning, anytime you get a time from 9 a.m. to between 9 and 2 p.m. today, you're going to have the Member of Parliament for Laventille West, the Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, and the Maranatha Seventh-day Adventist Church. And they have a grand health fair down there today. Now, during the program, of course, we'll continue to update you and inform you of the services that you can get today for free. Got that part for free. So, from Pap Smear...
This is for residents of Beetham Gardens
and surrounding
areas.
Don't mind it's on Beetham. It will be at the Excel Primary School on Beetham Gardens. And that's today, between 9 a.m. and 2 p.m. Go down there and get your free. There's a whole list here that we will share with you. But, from blood pressure testing to glucose testing, cholesterol, diabetic, prostate examinations, men. Don't hold back on that.
Correct. Very
stroke,
important.
risk factor assessment, diabetes, pap smear and breast examinations, first aid demonstrations, and most important, CPR certification. Because we saw just recently some folks had a river lime and somebody passed away, and they were literally stomping on his chest. They didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
And that's a perfect example of us not understanding how important it is to know CPR, especially.
Yes.
Because they all did not know what to do. They were all over the place with this man's body.
It's an important life skill.
Yes,
really,
it's an important life skill. So please, folks, go out there at the Beetham Gardens this afternoon, from this morning, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m., and get all those free services. And this is on behalf of the Member of Parliament for Laventille West, the Honorable Fitzgerald Hines, and the Maranatha Seventh-day Adventist Church. Go out there, get your free service. It's all for free. So I'm sorry to take so long of your time, my dear, but we have to try and whatever we can to help our people, right? So, Natasha, after this break, we'll come back and introduce. Could you say good morning to our guests?
Good morning, everyone. Thanks, Natasha. Natasha and Garth for having me.
You're most welcome. We will take a break, and when we come back from the break, or you will hear during the break, actually, the message of the United Nations Secretary General on International Women's Day. And when we come back from the break, you will hear some clips from an interview we did in 2010 with Beth Feder, who is a lawyer and advocate for survivors of domestic abuse. And we will share some of those clips throughout. But she has some very important things to say, and we keep repeating these clips as often as we can because the message has to be driven home about domestic violence, what causes it, how you can identify the cycle of abuse, and the fact that abuse and violence is learned behavior. So those are the 3 clips you'll hear coming out of the break.
Yes, and Beth, for those of you wondering who Beth Feather is, Beth, we interviewed her when we were on Tragridge Road on behalf of the U.S. Embassy and under Miss Alice Borrell, who suggested that we speak with her. And it was very timely information. For those of you who've been following our Dependency from way back when, you'll remember Beth. But the tips today, the tips she has, still important and relevant to this day.
Absolutely.
So we urge you all to pay attention to what Beth has, especially those of you who are listening to us who are not sure if you're in the wrong marriage or relationship and you're still trying to decide. I hope this program today will help you to do that and understand that, as we've interviewed here before, there are people who think that you should not be charged for raping your wife. When you have that going on still, education is key to alleviating some of these problems.
Absolutely.
Right? So let's go to that break, and when we return, we speak with
Akina.
We'll be back.
Cappy, talk to you now, boy. I got a small work for you to do. Make a quick 10 G's. What you do for me?
10 G's? What's that how I do there, boy?
What you doing? Taking your boat, run up the islands, pick up some people and then bring them back here for me. That's all you have to do.
That sounds like human trafficking, man. That's a serious crime. I can't make that.
Trafficking in human beings is a serious violation of a person's human rights. It violates a person's right to freedom of movement, freedom of choice, freedom of speech, and freedom of identity. It is a heinous crime which affects local, regional, and international peace and security. A victim of human trafficking is subjected to many types of abuse. The crime destroys a person's dignity and self-worth. Victims often feel hopeless, are suicidal, and are stigmatized in their communities. Child victims are deprived of their rights to education, play, and social interactions. They're essentially robbed of their childhood, and that can never be regained once those years have passed. If we do little or nothing to fight against human trafficking in our country, we can face economic sanctions from international agencies and partners. Our country will be losing money. Doing little or nothing to fight against human trafficking will tarnish our country's international image and, most of all, the value we place on human life. Human trafficking is no respecter of persons. Anyone can be a victim. So let us all strive to safeguard human life and dignity in Trinidad and Tobago.
We are the Counter-Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of National Security, Trinidad and Tobago, safeguarding human life.
On International Women's Day, we celebrate women and girls around the world, and we applaud all they have achieved in the fight for equality. Women and girls have made great gains, demolishing barriers, dismantling stereotypes, and driving progress towards a more just and equal world. Yet they face immense obstacles. Billions of women and girls face marginalization, injustice, and discrimination, while the persistent epidemic of violence against women disgraces humanity. Our world still reflects millennia of male-dominated power relations, and progress is under attack with a fierce backlash against women's rights. At our current rate, legal equality is some 300 years away. We must move much faster. On International Women's Day, we stand with women and girls fighting for their rights, and we commit to accelerating progress. This year's theme, Invest in Women, reminds us that ending the patriarchy requires money on the table. We must support women's organizations on the front line, and we must invest in programs to end violence against women and to drive women's inclusion and leadership in economies, digital technologies, peace building, and climate action. This all depends on unlocking finance for sustainable development so that countries have funds available to invest in women and girls. We also need to increase the number of women leaders in business, finance, central banks and finance ministries. This can help drive investments in policies and programs that respond to women and girls' needs. Women's rights are a proven path to fair, peaceful, prosperous societies. It is good for us all. Together, let's take urgent action to make it a reality, and I thank you.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on 95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
So we're gonna go straight to those 3 clips from Beth Feder now. So short man, yeah, you could roll with all 3 back to back.
Why do you think that men are reluctant to come forward and say they are being abused by women?
I think there's a lot of shame. I think that if we look at society as a whole, men are seen as macho. In the Latino society, they say machismo, that, men are supposed to be strong and powerful and no woman should be able to beat them up. I think one of the things society doesn't understand is domestic violence is not just about physical abuse. It's about emotional abuse. It's about verbal abuse, name calling, economic abuse, taking one's money, not letting your partner work, sexual abuse, forcing sexual intercourse on a party. I've seen cases where my clients have been forced to watch pornographic material they didn't want to see, and it's just a pattern of behavior that's controlling and coercive. And it's not just men who control and dominate women. I absolutely have seen situations where women are controlling and dominating men. And I think in not only in the U.S. society, but in Trinidad as well, those men are seen as weak. So they're getting abused by their partner. They know society's going to call them weak. And I've had some men, not here in Trinidad, but in the USA, and I went to the police and they laughed at me. Get a backbone. Go deal with it.
All right, so let's get into our guest Akina's program, Natasha.
All right. So
as
you
we
heard
look for
in
International Women's Day,
yes,
again.
As you heard in the promo, Akina is an author of 2 books. She's a mother of 2, and she's a survivor of domestic abuse. But let's go back to where it all started. And as we have this conversation about how your faith and your religion has played such an important role, not just in your life, but in your marriage and your seeking a divorce. What was the relationship like with the church growing up? What kind of relationship did you have with your creator?
Thanks again for having me, guys. So from the beginning, from the age of, I would say, around 15, I started, going to church and that kind of thing. And it was funny because, normally as a young person, normally your parents, your grandparents would have to force you to go to church, Get up and go to church, this and that. But for me, I always had I just always loved being within the church community. I loved my faith elements. I always felt really connected to that spiritual side of things, and I guess in church lingo, they say you have a call on your life, They use that vocabulary. I always felt like there was something that I was supposed to do for a greater purpose and meaning. So from a very early age, I gravitated towards church. My parents did not really have a church background. My mother, not so much. I grew up with my mom and my stepdad, him not so much either. But we had a neighbor who, she didn't have any kids, and I was the little girl living next door, and she was a pastor. So she and her husband, they eventually grew old, never had children. But because I was a little girl next door, always gravitated towards me. And they basically took me under their wing, and I would always come to church with them in Port of Spain every Sunday morning, So she kind of really introduced me to that side of, I guess, seeing a woman in leadership too. And that's where it all began. And at 16, I got baptized, and I made up my mind that I was going to serve the Lord all my life, not going to have sex before marriage, not going to do none of those things. I was going to be a good, decent girl, a church girl.
Woman. Yes.
And I did pretty good for a few years until the age of 19, where I met, my now separated ex-husband, and it took me along a journey.
How did your church and your influence from the church impact on that relationship? Was it your first one? And
yes.
How did it impact on the choices that you made to get into that relationship?
Because from a very early age, I made up my mind that I was not going to be promiscuous. I was not going to have all these sort of relationships and that kind of thing. And not only my faith alone, I'll go a little further to say too that my mother did not grow up with her mother. My mom grew up in an orphanage, and there was already there a kind of, we talk about how your past influences your present and your decisions. There was this kind of, trend in the family that the woman would not necessarily settle down. So I told myself that I was not going to be like that, if whatever that meant to me then. That meant to me back then. So I said from the time I start having a relationship or a boyfriend or whatever, I'm going to settle down. And this gentleman, this young man that I met, was a few years older than me, not much, just 4 years older. Went to the same school as me, but he came back into the school for something, and I was there, and that's how we met and started our relationship. But he was not a person in church. He was not a Christian. He was not, into that life. He was on a whole completely different life. But I thought that I was so saved that I could change him. This is the person that I want to be with, and I like this person. I think too, I was not the more out there kind of girl, very quiet kind of thing. So while all my other friends and peers in the senior forms were having relationships, they had boyfriend and stuff, I didn't. So here I was now, this older person giving me attention. Then this must be the one that God sent for me.
Even though you're unequally yoked.
Exactly. I didn't want to use that verbiage.
I know.
Because that's what they say.
Yes. But that term just jumped into my head when you said that.
That is exactly what was said to me.
So were you advised not to pursue? Or?
Yes, I was. And it's only many years later I realized, that our Prime Minister made a statement the other day when he said, women need to choose better. And I think people were upset about it because of the time it was said. It was said during when somebody was murdered. That time was not the right time to say something like that, because it took the responsibility off of the victim and on the abuser. However, there is a level of truth to that, where when you meet somebody, you may know that this is not the person for you, but sometimes we still,
ignore the red
flags and the warnings because it's what you want. And I was warned from the very earlies. I remember we had a pastor at that time, and he told me the exact same statement. You two are unequally yoked. You should not pursue that relationship. And I went and I told the other person that I was in a relationship with, and he said, the pastor just telling you that because he wants to be with you. And back then I was 19, so I believed it. And I did not know back then that is how abuse works. That's where the grooming starts, the isolation from the people who giving good advice to make you feel like they have a hidden agenda.
Yep, and the manipulation of your emotions. But again, a lot of women are brought up to believe that they can change.
Yeah. And
the
there are a lot
man
of teachings, books, movies. I was telling somebody, I probably watched War Room how much times. And while there are, good cases, people that would have gone through a spiritual journey and they really saw amazing results and transformation and stuff. Yes, there are stories about that. They're not taken away from that. But I think, what I would really like to leave, if anything, with the listeners today is that just because that may have been the story of some, it does not mean that that will be your story. And you cannot sit around as a Christian woman and wait for God to change this person while your life withers away.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, you against all the advice, so you started with this person, and when did marriage come into the picture?
Well, the dating relationship was very tumultuous to begin with.
Oh,
Very,
right.
very tumultuous. So there was a lot of...
So there were a lot of signs and red flags even during the dating.
Yeah.
And you still felt that
I could change him.
you could do a Mary Magdalene.
Not only me, but it was advice that I was receiving from intercessors, women that were women leaders, that push that narrative in me as a younger woman. Continue to pray, get up and anoint the shoes, and do the whole.
What? Anoint the shoes.
Yes, that's what it.
Let me tell you, if I wake up and see Natasha anywhere close to my shoes, and anointed my shoes, like the era of Dependency.
That is something that people do.
Anoint the
Yes.
What? No,
Yes,
let's just segue to this because I want to know, what does that entail?
It basically means, like, in the mindset is that if you need to go before God and go before
with the shoes,
with the hat, with the gloves, with the pen, with the everything, with the phone, with the take everything that this and it's funny how people of faith, they are always quick to talk about witchcraft or superstition.
Yes.
But these things to me also seems very superstitious and
Yes.
witchcrafty as well too.
Yes.
Because it's
Agreed.
manipulation. You're basically
course it
trying to
is.
manipulate something spiritually to get your outcome.
Somebody say amen. Just one, hold on.
Amen.
Wait, hold on.
No, that is very true.
I can't believe I'm a Catholic. And I know there are things that happen out there and the way people do their thing in there. But I've never heard of that before. Because anytime you're talking about personal items, to go somewhere with it, that always has a bad connotation to begin with.
Yeah, it's
where
associated
I come from.
with black magic and
Of course.
Obeah and all of these things in a negative light.
But that's not conversations that they want to have. They would not admit that. It's black magic if a Hindu pundit come and do it.
Yes.
But if you attach a scripture and anoint and olive oil to it, then it's holy.
Right.
So.
But isn't that also using spiritual persuasion to keep someone?
Yeah.
Or to
That could be
change
considered
someone?
spiritual abuse, eh?
But listen, if you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and let me explain who we are and what we're talking about here, because we have Akina in studio with us, and she's telling her story about meeting someone, and even against advice, decided to hook up with the person, saw red flags, did not pay attention to them, and now we don't know this person, but just listen to the journey and hear again if you can identify.
Yeah.
Right. So you were being instructed to do all of these things.
This is in a dating relationship.
Yes. And while you were dating, to keep him on side and to solidify, I guess, your
I think too what played a huge part in that is that a lot of people liked us as a couple. We were very good at doing things together. From a very young age, I was always very motivated. So I was working from 17 on a weekend and going to school during the week.
Right.
I got pregnant at 19, but I moved on still to have a career in aviation. And I never let things stop me. By early mid-20s, I owned my own home. He was in a quote-unquote good government job.
Right.
So people liked us as a couple because we looked good, and we also would have made the church look good had that relationship worked. Because what I've learned now is that a lot of churches and things like that, they like to see sometimes people's issues as a project.
Mm-hmm. No, take up when you got pregnant before marriage or after?
Before. Yeah,
okay, so
before.
and even that did not, because that too supposed to be a no-no, right?
Yeah.
And okay.
And it happened, and so even after that happened, I was fully committed. Now that I can't,
it can't throw them away now.
No, that
Yeah.
time passed.
Right.
And during that time, there was a lot of cheating. Every time I tried to leave from the cheating, abuse would happen. I'm talking about like choking, kicking, locking in a room and being left in the room. Abuse while I was pregnant,
Wow.
a lot of things. And when I would sometimes go back to the people that were, I was seeking to for counsel.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, my community was people of faith.
Yes.
So I wouldn't go necessarily to, say, a therapist, because that was not the community. And that wasn't what I knew at the time. I didn't have the knowledge that I know now. I was still very much involved in that community.
Yeah. And relying on them to give you that support.
Good advice. And also looking too at older couples that would then share, this was our journey too.
Right.
I went through that when I was younger too. But look at where we are today.
Oh.
So I felt as though, God had us on this path and that one day I would have this testimony just like Sister so-and-so or Mrs. so-and-so to be able to tell.
Wow. Was he at this point going to church with you? Was he involved at all?
Not during the dating relationship. No, not at all. He was not. Didn't really want to have anything to do with church, but he benefited from me being involved in church. So
he kind of got a pass then.
Yeah. So it continued into the dating relationship, and then there was one instance that happened with cheating, and I was like, enough is enough, and I was done. And he proposed to me, which was I always say that was the final, what they call it, a phase that they say the jack something.
Final.
Like a card, a card that people could pull, the final card, the trump card.
Right.
Because that was what I wanted all the years that we were dating, always want. Of course, that was what I was working towards. I wasn't anointing all these shoes for nothing.
You wanted him to put a ring on it.
Yes, in my head, I'm like, God, you finally do it.
Are you serious? Even after all the abuse?
Yeah.
And when
are you an only child?
No, but I'm the eldest. But
Okay.
at that time, I was not sharing with people in my family that I knew would have been upset about it, because, again, I think, I don't want to put the onto people because it was me, but it's so important when you, as a young person growing up, I always say, I think my prefrontal cortex wasn't developed yet.
Yes, correct. It's
and
not.
I had older people, mainly older women in my life, telling me that this is what I needed to do, because this is what Christian women do in order for their men to be saved, and God wants to use the man to do this, and you as the woman have to stand by him and hold him up, and your role is to pray him through this.
Oh my Lord.
And,
so in essence, you have to suffer to that concept of suffering to come out on the other side.
Yes, and the woman has to pay that price, because men are often the ones that are under attack more, and as is a woman's place to, it's even taught, with regards to if they have a role that the woman have to stand behind and make sure that she pray the husband through. If he battling alcoholism, you have to pray for that. If he battling promiscuity, you have to pray for that. no accountability for this person and their role. It's your function. Like I said, there are movies out there about it. This movie
Yes.
War Room, that's the basis of the story,
Yeah.
where the woman is, the husband doing whatever out there, but you have to pray this person through. And again, I'm not saying that there are not cases where where it worked for them,
Yes.
But from what I've seen is that a lot of the cases where it worked for them, it's not so much that it worked, it's just that they got older and the man got tired and he just get fed up and give in trouble.
Correct.
So you were proposed to, you decided to get married. We're going to take a break, folks.
Yep.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Akina. She's telling her story, and she published a book. It's a book, right? You published a book?
2 books.
2 books, actually.
One is called Labor of Love, and the other one is
Starting Over.
Right.
You can begin again. It's for single mothers.
Right.
Good. Wonderful. Now, after this break, we're going to find out what happened after they got married and how that journey go, and if she still continue to ignore red flags.
Yep.
You can join us on Facebook or YouTube on Dependency. Before you go to a break.
Yes, before we go to the break, can we just play those the other 2 clips, B and C, and then we could go straight to the break and come back to us.
Morning. Listen now. Has noticed something out. Them new people on the Bobby Road. Where's that? Girl, the man is passing up and down in front of here with a set of woman.
I really noticed some woman living there, And they can't even say as much as good morning.
Well, listen now. I wonder if it's human trafficking. You think it's that?
So, how can you spot and identify perpetrators and victims of trafficking? Many victims are found living and working together in the same place and sleep in shared and inappropriate spaces. Victims work excessively long hours. They often sleep in the daytime and work long nights. They are often escorted everywhere they go and may appear to be malnourished. They may show signs of physical abuse, drug and alcohol use, and may also appear withdrawn, fearful, or intimidated. Victims who are migrants are often not in possession of their identity or immigration documents and have irregular immigration status. Perpetrators can be male or female and may appear to be managing or controlling the victims. And they may even at times appear to be the victim's best friend, boyfriend, or employer.
We are the Counter-Trafficking Unit of the Ministry of National Security, Trinidad and Tobago, safeguarding human life.
On International Women's Day, we celebrate women and girls around the world, and we applaud all they have achieved in the fight for equality. Women and girls have made great gains, demolishing barriers, dismantling stereotypes, and driving progress towards a more just and equal world. Yet they face immense obstacles. Billions of women and girls face marginalization, injustice, and discrimination, while the persistent epidemic of violence against women disgraces humanity. Our world still reflects millennia of male-dominated power relations, and progress is under attack with a fierce backlash against women's rights. At our current rate, legal equality is some 300 years away. We must move much faster. On International Women's Day, we stand with women and girls fighting for their rights, and we commit to accelerating progress. This year's theme, Invest in Women, reminds us that ending the patriarchy requires money on the table. We must support women's organizations on the front line, and we must invest in programs to end violence against women and to drive women's inclusion and leadership in economies, digital technologies, peace building, and climate action. This all depends on unlocking finance for sustainable development so that countries have funds available to invest in women and girls. We also need to increase the number of women leaders in business, finance, central banks, and finance ministries. This can help drive investments in policies and programs that respond to women and girls' needs. Women's rights are a proven path to fair, peaceful, prosperous societies. It is good for us all. Together, let's take urgent action to make it a reality, and I thank you.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays, at 10 a.m., and exclusively, on 95.5 FM.
And streamed live, on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page, and YouTube channel.
There is a cycle of violence. There's two cycles I talk about. One cycle is the cycle once you're in the relationship. It starts, and I'm sort of drawing a circle here. So it starts with, things are always really nice at first, because the truth is, if somebody hits me in the head on the first date, I'm not going out with them again, and I hope nobody here would either. It starts with very nice, what I call the honeymoon behavior. Then all of a sudden, I'm going to use she as the victim just to be consistent throughout. So then she starts realizing she's sort of walking on eggshells. Things are, he's starting to get jealous. He's being very controlling and starting to isolate her. Then all of a sudden, you're going up the circle and boom, there's a climactic point of either a huge physical altercation or just such degradation she just doesn't know what to do with herself. Usually, though, there's a physical altercation. Then, if she doesn't leave at that point or get counseling or they do something different, you're now in the cycle. Because guess what happens? We're in a honeymoon period again. He's so sorry, dozen roses, taking her to dinner. I promise I'll see your mother. That one never lasts long. And the cycle continues and continues. So you have a cycle. And until it's broken at some point, that cycle can continue. I'm in a relationship and I'm being abused. You know what? I saw my mother being abused. My mother saw my grandmother being abused. Until that cycle is broken, it won't stop, and my daughter will most likely be in an abusive relationship. I have read enough studies and been doing this for 12 to 13 years to know domestic violence and abusing someone is a learned behavior. It is not like diabetes. It's not a disease that is in your bodies. It's not alcoholism. It's not drug addiction. Those, I truly believe, are diseases in your body. You learn how to treat people by what you saw or didn't see. Because somebody asked me this morning, you're saying that they learn the behavior from their father hitting their mother or their mother hitting their father, or just how people speak to each other. Because if you think about how you learned it, it's from your parents or whoever the mom and dad role models were, whether it's your grandmother, whoever. And this one man said, well, I'm dealing with this young man and his father wasn't there. And he beats his mother up and this and that. There was no male role model for him. So his anger is getting taken out on the one person who was there. So he's learned, this is how I'm going to treat a person. It's hard to get an 18 to 20-year-old to do much of anything, let alone go to counseling. And had maybe she gotten him into counseling at a younger age or shown him positive male role models, things could have possibly been different for that young man. Every person is different. But if mom and or dad don't work to change that cycle, it can only repeat. I mean, I can't tell you how many clients I've had who said, my mother was abused, my father was abused, my husband's mother was abused, my husband's father was abusive. So it's a pattern, unfortunately, a generational thing. Like somebody said, is it hereditary? I said, well, yes and no. I said, unfortunately, it's hereditary if you look at it as something you take down from a generation, but it's not like in your body. It's not like, I inherited my mom's, hazel eyes or something like that. It's not in you. You are not born to hit. You are only born to defend yourself. But otherwise, unless somebody takes my hand and punches me in the head, I'm always in control of how I react to things.
So again, that was Beth Feder talking to us about domestic abuse back in 2010. So and you can hear how relevant everything that she has to say was. And of course, as we were listening to it in studio, Akenna was nodding her head and agreeing with what she's saying.
What are some of the things you identified with there? But first of all, the honeymoon phase, you went through that.
Yeah, that honeymoon phase is it's insane for me to look back on that, because when she said it doesn't last long, to you, the victim, it feels like the honeymoon phase is longer and the abuse is shorter. But when in retrospect, when you're out, you look back and you're like, no, like one dinner can't make up for you punching me in my face, But because you so want this person to be nice to you, you would do absolutely anything, you know, to just like, why can't you just be nicer? Why can't you just see? I also, how she closed it with talking about what, like domestic violence being learned behavior, that played a lot on me because as a person of faith and the advice I was receiving, I grew to have this empathy for him and the entire family because they had a story of abuse in their family. So I was told and I believed that God sent me into this family to change them. And then when I got children now, it's to break the generational curse. You know, it's to make things better so that my children will break that curse. But it also goes to show and to agree with what she said, that unless somebody breaks it, it will continue. Because, I mean, and I don't want to speak too much about that other party's side of things, but from what I understood and being told, you know, stories from his mom that she too went through a lot, I grew to have a great sense of empathy for her as well. As a matriarch of the family, you know, she went through this. And then him now, a son, you know, he maybe he didn't know, you know, and have that empathy and this and that. And that empathy is one of the biggest reasons why I stayed, because I believed that I could use my faith to change all these things.
No, some of the times you have to defend yourself. Would it include covering your face and, you know, protecting yourself from physical harm?
Yeah.
That was before the marriage?
Yeah, before the marriage.
And haven't you heard people like Beth before, or weren't you aware of the fact that you don't deserve that and should not be accepting that?
Yeah, at some point...
Wasn't the information accessible to you then?
Not so much. And also, as I said, this was my first person that I was ever in a relationship with. I had nothing to compare it to. And I was also keeping it quiet because people, and it's funny, you know, especially as we're on the topic of International Women's Day, a lot of times, you know, we talk about men being the ones to oppress women in the church and this and that. But majority of the advice that I was getting was from women. Was from older women telling me, don't tell anybody your business, stay quiet about that. And it's only afterwards when I look back, a lot of these women were saying that because that is what they did. That was their story. And they didn't address their trauma, they didn't address their issues. And many years later, when I came out and I wrote my book and stuff like that, most of these women stopped speaking to me. Because here I was now, why are you talking?
Exposing the cover-up that was happening for so many years. And it's a sad reality that women who themselves have been victims of abuse would encourage another woman, especially a young woman, to do the same thing. I mean,
but they didn't know. They didn't even know better for their own self.
Exactly. That is the sad part, you know, that they never got help. So they are perpetuating the cycle as well through their actions.
This has me really baffled, Akina. And how old are you now, if you don't mind?
35.
Right. So I'm thinking, were there enough outreach programs? And there must have been something.
Absolutely
you're walking on the
not.
road, you see a pamphlet, you put on your radio, you watch TV, you see an advertisement for battered women and abused women not to accept this. Or was it, did you think that you were at fault too for what he was doing to you?
Yeah, sometimes. I would think that if I find out that he's cheating, maybe I should just not say anything and just pray about it. Don't tell him about it. I'm getting him angry. I am the one to get him angry. And you're told this as well. You know, why you went through my phone for? If you don't go through my phone, you just be getting me vexed. Is you try to grab my phone from me or all these things, you know? And so instead, I am now trying to see what I could change in me. And that is what I people who are listening on radio, they can't see, but years later I developed. That is what really made me go along this path of change, and I know we'll get to that in the end probably. Yes. But it wasn't until I got vitiligo, which is a skin condition that I learned later was triggered by stress, is what made me realize that I need to make some changes.
Yeah.
And one of the changes came with making up my mind to leave.
Right.
No. Could you go back to that medical explanation again? How you get vitiligo? You call it?
Well, vitiligo.
Vitiligo.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know what that is, could you explain?
Yes, so vitiligo is a skin condition that affects about 3% of the global population, and it's where your skin loses its pigment. So people identify it with most commonly Michael Jackson.
Right.
Yes.
Where he would have gone from being black or brown to white. He may have done stuff to speed up the process, but it's basically where you lose your pigment. It's an autoimmune condition.
And stress brings it on.
Yeah.
So all this time you were hiding, covering, pretending.
Mm-hmm. I was also in a job too that allowed me the luxury to travel and be out of the country a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my coping mechanism.
Yeah.
Traveling, leaving, getting away. That was how I coped. And just bottling it away, hiding it away, because I wanted, of course, to maintain the pristine, perfect image that we in church, and, we this and that. And because he eventually started coming to church after the marriage.
Right. So now let's get to that in terms of, so he proposed.
Mm-hmm.
You had been going through all of this before you decided, yes, I will marry you. Did you have any trepidation, and what was the response of your family and his family to this marriage?
The day of the proposal, we were not even together. And he proposed to me very publicly at a relative's wedding. So it was a whole spectacle.
Took the microphone and so on?
Yeah. So, and I remember asking him after, are you sure this is what you want to do? And he was like, yes. So
you obviously said
I
yes.
couldn't say no, one.
Yeah,
but the mere fact that I asked him, I always think about that, the mere fact that I asked him, are you sure this is what you want to do? It meant that I had some sort of hesitancy.
Yes.
But I couldn't say that obviously in front of everybody. So I was like, I went along with the yes in front of the crowd. And then after I was like, I don't know, we're not even together right now because you were with somebody else last week. We had a whole thing, and I was really kind of ready to cut it there.
Wow.
But
this guy is really manipulative.
But then when the marriage was offered, I really believed that was God, that a breakthrough had happened, to use the word.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and we are speaking with Akina. She's telling her story about her journey and what stance she had to take to relieve herself of a marriage that was not working out or did not work out the way she had expected to. So you all married now.
Yes.
And was it a roller coaster ride?
Before you go into that, I what was his family's response to the marriage? Because I want to get a sense of what they must have known about him, and what they probably didn't know but may have been clued into as to what was going to happen.
Yeah.
At the marriage.
Well, remember going back early on, I said that we were also very good at doing stuff together.
Yes.
We fit the bill, and I was in a job that came with a lot of perks for not just myself. And I believe that people wanted us to work. So even though it was toxic, and I was enabling the toxicity too, people never really said, don't. The advice was always try to make it work. And then it got worse when children came into the picture now, because you don't want to break things up for the children, this and that. His family too, they would have experienced abuse in their family.
Yep.
So that was common to them. And I still believe to this day, me doing even what I'm doing right now and things like that, I'm like public enemy number one, without realizing that what we accepted and thought was normal is not normal behavior. Telling somebody to accept that is not normal behavior. But when you, just like what the attorney was saying in the interview, when you grow up experiencing this, you feel like it's normal. And when I eventually had daughters of my own, and started especially to have conversations with my teenager, I was like, I cannot advise my children that this is normal behavior. I think I would flip if any man ever even raised their voice at my daughters to now be practicing this behavior in front of them.
Modeling the behavior for them.
My family only came into play when I revealed it to them, because I was really kind of keeping it quiet, especially from my father. I grew up with my stepdad. He knew a bit of what was happening, I think, because he's a police officer, well, retired now, and I think he picked up on certain signs. And when he told me, he was kind of against the relationship, and I continued. Oh, it really puts a damp on our relationship. But eventually, there was one instance that happened where my ex was very, very, like, behaving really erratic and was trying to break down a door to get to me. I locked myself in the house and I called my dad. And my biological dad, who I had never involved for years because he is a rango-tango, as to say, you know?
Right, yes.
And I called him and he came and he dealt a couple blows to the gentleman. And that was the last day that he ever put his hand on me.
So, but something brought you to that point where you said...
I believe that the children were not around that day, and I believe that if he had got access to the house, I wouldn't be here today. The way he was behaving, he had the door is a door with a concrete frame, and piece of the concrete was cracked. And I had knew that he had always told me that if you leave me, I would kill you. And I was trying to leave because I had found out some stuff, and, you know, normally people would have been home with me to be like, you know, he mightn't behave like that, but I was there alone. And he come breaking down the door, tinging down the door to the point where it almost came off the hinges. And I was like, I don't know what to do again. Where do I go? So I ended up calling my dad, and he came down the road and with cutlass. It was a whole big drama. People had to separate the fight, but the cutlass dropped. But and I mean, I'm not advocating because that's violence too. I don't want to be like, you know, have somebody beat up somebody else so that abuse could stop. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I had never revealed to that side of my family what was really happening because I knew that the outcome would have been that. And remember, here I am now, I trying to make this work. People in the church telling me, don't tell anybody anything. And yeah, but even after that happening, I didn't leave her.
You know, you have me in shock here. You notice my jaw is open, my jaw, you know, looking at you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you see this young lady sitting in the studio with us, right, you will never believe that you actually witnessed and went through all of that. Serious. I would never, that's the last place I would place you in thinking, how can I assess Akina if I have to? I would never believe this. Now, let's go back to that a bit. Your father, this was like, I'm seeing this a movie scene here. Somebody trying to break down your door, you have your phone, you have to call somebody. How far did your father live from you?
About 10 minutes, but he probably made it in 5.
Right.
Yeah.
But thank God, because, you know.
Yeah. And you know, I want to, I don't know if she's online, but shout out to Sue Barker. She's the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Narcissistic Abuse Foundation. Maybe I could introduce you all to her sometime.
Yes, please.
When people talk about abuse and abusers and things like that, they always say that person, they wouldn't do that. They wouldn't do that to you. They wouldn't kill you. But I remember hearing something that she said where it's like, a person doesn't have to have a motive to kill you that's abusive. It doesn't have to be that they are a murderer or they plotting this murder scene or they are this horrible person. But in that fit of rage, that's why they call it crimes of passion. In that fit of rage, you might come in and the first thing you might see something, you hit me, and that's it. You know, so I think people always get offended when I say I had to do what I had to do because he would have killed me or could have killed me, thinking that, oh, so you're trying to say that this person is a murderer? No, it's not that.
But research has shown, in research into domestic violence has shown that is the most dangerous time in an abusive relationship is when one of the parties decides to leave. That it is at that point that the victim is at most risk. And we have seen it play out. Yeah, we've seen it play out in the news.
Yeah.
Every time you see a woman being killed by an abusive ex-partner, it's because she has decided to leave.
And people always say they didn't think that they would have done that.
Exactly.
I'm sure the person who did it too sometimes didn't think that they would have done that.
Correct. But
so your father came, and that's when he challenged your father, or he decided, okay, time to back off.
Honestly, I can't really say because
you were inside.
I kind of like just it happened that my stepfather ended up coming too,
Right.
and the two of them are like day and night, you know. So one is the quiet, reserved kind of person. So he kind of took me aside, and I'm not sure exactly what really happened, but I knew that he was dealt a couple blows, and then yeah, it just. I think my stepdad had to go and separate, like part them in the end. But that was the last day that he really put his hand on me. And people might say, you should have said something earlier on. But I think I was, one, afraid. Two, I was ashamed to know that I stayed all these years. Because this is now about 8 years into the relationship, 9 years into the relationship, that I'm now revealing to my father that, hey, I'm now basically letting you come into this. And afterwards I learned that the family kind of heard a little talk. They kind of knew, but they never got involved because I never really came to them. I never said. So they didn't know if it was truthful, if it was just gossip, you know.
Yep.
But it was. Yeah.
So how? Okay, so you've accepted his proposal. You got married. What was the church's intervention now in your marriage? Did you get married in your church? What was that?
Yeah, we did. We got married to the church that I was going to since I was, I guess like a teenager. During that time, the pastors had changed and that kind of thing. And it was fine because we were still being counseled to we have to understand, like, the church's narrative is forgiveness. And God changing you to be a new creature, new creation. So once the marriage, remember I said pre-marriage he wasn't really going to church. Yeah. Post-marriage he started his spiritual journey. Okay. Or so he said. And so he says, you know, I always have to kind of like, you know, check myself with that because it's not my place to say that nobody not on that truthful path. But at the same time, if you are on a spiritual journey today and your behavior changes next week, and then the week after you use the spiritual journey to now get forgiveness for what you did the week before, then at what point do the leaders recognize that, you know, this person could probably be using this just
as a shield, basically.
Yeah, it's like a child, I don't know, trying to get their way, but using something to make the parent feel sorry for them.
Yeah, it's not a maxi. Your spirituality is not a maxi. You jump on and jump off, right?
Yeah.
So in 9 years, and if you're just joining us, we're listening to Akina. She's telling of her journey through marriage and how the church dealt with it and what she decided to do to take back her power. So you have me so frazzled here right now. You wouldn't believe that for that 8 years you were abused every year, right, in your marriage, but you still decided and you still thought that you could have prayed it away. It didn't happen. What went through your mind then, in hindsight, when that day came and they had to separate him from the door?
Did you think it was over at that point?
Yeah.
Did you wake up then?
I didn't wake up then, but I realized then that I had some power and that I was not alone. Because I always felt like, you know, I can't really go to my family with this. Maybe they wouldn't. Like, I just kind of have to fight. Because, again, plugging that in, I was always being told to keep the business to yourself. Keep what you're praying about quietly. So I felt like if I tell my family and stuff, they would probably be like, leave that man, this is whatever. And then that would be a negative outcome. Not realizing that my father didn't really care if I stayed or if I left. His thing was, you're not putting your hand on my daughter.
Right.
You know? So I felt empowered then to know that, okay, I have people that would stand for me and stand up for me. I don't have to feel like, because I think abusers too, they try to make you feel like you're in this box by yourself,
Yes.
you know?
Yes.
That nobody is going to come for you, nobody going to help you, you know, I could do you whatever.
Yep, absolutely. And was this, the abuse, and it's something that you spoke about with your counselors, quote unquote, in the church?
Yeah.
How did those conversations go? Because
not very long before that incident, because during that time there was a lot of abuse surrounding, a lot of things surrounding that little season, because there was an affair happening. And I would say too that it was, my situation wasn't like, you know, you're angry and you're hitting, or you're coming home drunk and you're hitting. It was a lot of cheating.
Well, I was going to ask you,
The trigger was me leaving.
So it was gambling involved too as well?
No, it was
Just
only
women.
woman.
Infidelity.
Women.
And drinking and some...
No drinking, just women.
Just
only women.
Right.
And the trigger was when I leave, if I tried to leave.
Right.
So...
Or try to at least have him accountable for his actions.
Yes, that was the trigger. So there was not very long before my father got involved. And I think that too probably is what... That was the eye-opener for my stepfather, because he found out what was happening, because he had to take me to the hospital. One instance, I was hit in my face with a cell phone, and my ears started to bleed, and I had to go to the Arima hospital, make a report, go to the police station, all of that. And that same week, went to see our then pastor and tell him that I couldn't do it anymore. I just can't do this anymore. And the then pastor looked at me and he said, you know, I'm sorry to hear that, but I don't do divorce counseling. I do marriage counseling.
I'm sorry to hear that. But I don't do divorce counseling. What is divorce counseling anyway?
Well, that's the thing. At the time, I was not even saying that I wanted to pursue divorce. I'm coming to tell you about, I cannot do this relationship anymore.
Correct.
With all this abuse taking place. And yet, so basically it's like, as long as you follow the path that we have you on, if you tell us forgiveness, this and that, reconciliation, working on the marriage and the family unit, that's fine. But the minute that you say, hey, I cannot go through this anymore, and I can't speak for all churches, and again, I wouldn't say that all my Christian or religious experience was bad. It wasn't. I had good things too happen. But I could only talk about my experience as a victim of domestic violence and a woman leaving and divorce. Because that was my experience.
Did this pastor show any concern for you and your safety of you and your children in this conversation?
Did he understand the last straw?
I believe he did. But they, I think too, they separate themselves. Some of them immediately separate themselves from the transaction or the relationship the minute that it goes down divorce. I think a lot of Christian people don't want to associate themselves with divorce and separation. So they somehow, from the time somebody heading down that path, from the time a couple or a family heading down that path, they throw you away.
I am so you have
and you have to now seek help outside.
This is mind-blowing because I
Natasha, hold on. Let me just jump in here for a minute. So, what you trying to tell me that if that pastor's daughter ends up in a marriage, a relationship that's abusive, would he advise her to do the same? You see, this is what freaks me out about people and that way of thinking. Your safety I think your safety and the safety of your children more important than a piece of paper that says you married someone.
Well, the argument, I could already tell you what the argument to that would be. The argument to that will be is they will say that that's why you should choose better. So again, it goes back to you making the wrong choice and you not listening.
But
And
once you choose to live with it, that's
Yeah.
what it says too.
Well, I was also told by many other leaders that marriage is a covenant and God honors that covenant, and that covenant is sacred and you should not, no matter what. There are also,
Even though you're getting beaten to a pulp.
there are also churches that believe that abuse is not a reason for divorce, that the only reason for divorce is adultery, and that you could work through abuse, separate for a little while, and you could work through physical abuse.
But there was adultery in this relationship.
Yeah,
So even that was not a
So he
reason
wasn't saying not to get divorced. He was basically just saying,
Taking himself out.
I don't want to have anything to do with that.
I see.
Wow. So
Let
big
me
help,
ask
I
this: was there any in the church? We know that the churches are generally have causes or issues that they treat within the ambit of the church's doctrine. I'm guessing that domestic violence or abuse in general was not one of those issues that the church dealt with, or
No.
if it no.
Because we're in 2024 now. These things would have been like maybe 2018, 2017, 2018, around there.
Yeah. That was just the other day.
Yeah. And I feel like it's really probably now. I have a dear friend. Her name is Kamika McCletchy. She's, Kamika. Kamika Kamika was one of the first people who started to talk about domestic violence in the church.
We've had her on our
And Kamika does still get licks and
Seriously?
backlash and
for that.
For it. Avenel Hector Joseph too talks a lot about it, does a lot of good work. There are people who find Avenel should hush.
So let me paint this picture here. So I'm on the congregation, I'm on the pulpit, and I'm saying, brothers and sisters, you married. It's a covenant. So you're getting hit upside the head. Once in a while, he loves you. He
God
spends a
loves
night
you
out,
and you
and
need to
God
pray
loves
for
you
him.
too. He spends a night out with a woman, and don't worry, he's still coming back home to you. You need to fix that and stay with it and stick with it. That is what will actually come out people's mouths
And
to tell people.
it's also because they try to be so they so want to practice loving everybody, loving the sinner, but they're also doing the abuser a grand disservice, because you're now not even helping this person to become accountable. You're making them believe that is a spirit have them acting this way, or because you saw your father abuse your mother, rather than saying, hey, I don't know how to address this, let me direct you to somewhere you could get help. So now you're even you are also enabling the abuser or the perpetrator and basically refusing them the real help that they would need in order to change, or to I don't know if abusers could change. It's like maybe recovery. I don't know what you...
They can change, but they have to first acknowledge that they have the harm that they have done, and then work towards changing the mindset that has them believing that violence is a solution to anything.
Let's. If you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency. Those of you on YouTube, our usual supporters and others, seen some new faces on YouTube. Thank you very much. Remember, while you're there, to like and subscribe to the channel, please. It will help us in the future. So please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and even our Facebook channel for those of you on Facebook. And in studio with us is Akina. We're going to take a break. In studio with us is Akina, and she's telling her story of endurance, physical and emotional endurance. This is amazing. And I'm even more incensed that. But again, what should we expect? That we interviewed, as I said in the early part of the program, we interviewed a man who felt that a man should not be charged for raping his wife, and he called himself a prophet.
Yeah.
And he's standing by that. That should not happen. So if I come home and I feel amorous one night, my wife says no, to hell with what my wife feels, I will take her clothes off and have sex with her. And that is what some people still believe it's okay out there to do.
Yes, and they will quote
freaks me out.
Scripture that will say that a woman in a marriage is essentially the man's property, which will allow him to do to her and with her whatever he chooses. So before we go to that break, Shortman, could you play clips D and E? And when we come back with Akenna, we talk about as much as you would like to share about your children and how they have responded to the abuse that they saw with their parents.
And response to your book and all of that.
Yeah.
And remember, folks, for those of you who have the time today, remember on the Beetham at Excel Primary School, Beetham Gardens, from 10 a.m. today, Sunday, you're going to go down there and get free healthcare service. Blood testing, prostate examination, first aid demonstrations, and most importantly, CPR certification, dental services, lung capacity tests. Go down there, man. Go down. Bio age analysis, eye testing, massages and all. Vaccines, hepatitis B, tetanus. All of these things will be available to you today for free on behalf of the Member of Parliament for Laventille West, the Honourable Fitzgerald Hines, and the Maranatha Seventh-day Adventist Church. Go down there at the Excel Primary School and Beetham Gardens. You listen to Dependency. We'll be back with this amusing story. You really took us to school today, Akina.
But first, we're going to hear from Beth Feder again about what children see and experience and how parents can share custody and how that works after the divorce. And then we go to a break.
Now, some kids can get some intervention where they then see, okay, I learned that behavior, but now I'm learning that wasn't good behavior. What my daddy did, it wasn't good. And they know inside, you have an intuition inside when something's going, especially children, they know. And I represented children. They told me everything that was going on in their homes. There was nothing those kids missed. Parents would come in my office because I interviewed even the parents, even if I was representing the child. And the parents said, oh, no, Johnny or Jeannie didn't hear anything. They don't know what was oh, really? Is that really what you think? Kids hear everything and kids repeat, especially the little ones. They don't know how to lie, which is a beautiful thing. We teach them how to do that, and you teach them how to eat. You teach them how to walk. You teach them how to talk. You teach them how to treat other people. It all goes hand in hand. One of the things in the United States is domestic violence is always considered when making a decision on a child custody case. So if the parents are going to court, it's one of many factors. So the court can sit there and say there was some domestic violence, but I don't believe that's a major factor, but I'm going to analyze it a little. The courts look at a lot of things. If there is a finding that one parent committed domestic violence or some act of domestic violence, that has to be considered when making the decision. That's not to say every victim will always get custody, but it certainly helps the case. The main thing for us advocates was we want to make sure the courts are looking at it. And if they're not looking at it, why are they not looking at it? We have wonderful intervention programs in the U.S. from early childhood intervention up through, college age to whether it's counseling. We also have what I've realized there is done in Trinidad a supervised visitation program. So even a parent who for sure is either an addict or is so violent or has threatened to kidnap the child or take them away, one thing we know is these kids still love mom or dad, whichever one is the abuser. And we know these kids want to see that parent, and it's in their best interest to see that parent. It's really grown over the past couple decades, these supervised visitation programs that are secure. The parent who has custody comes in a separate entrance from the other parent. The children then, with a social worker, get to meet with that other parent, sometimes for an hour, sometimes it can be up to 6 hours, and it's in a supervised setting. It's usually almost like a daycare kind of room. So there's games and there's toys. And for some of these parents who've never really learned how to parent, you have a social worker there helping you. So it can almost, benefit. We do have separate parenting programs as well. But there is a lot. And kids really need guidance. It's not just to sit there and say, oh yeah, what your dad did was wrong, and then just look away and that's it. You really need to talk to them about it. Here's what they did that was wrong. Here's why it's wrong. Here's what would be better. And if you don't feel equipped to do that, then find a professional who can. Get professional help. I feel like that's my mantra. Get professional help. Talk. Learn how you should talk to your teens about it. And you want to get your kids talking as well. Because if they've seen it just be hush-hush behind closed doors, that's how they're going to treat the situation. Very hush-hush. Keep it behind closed doors.
The sex trafficking thing, that's a serious thing in a way.
Sex trafficking?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was only human trafficking it have.
But what do you mean?
No serious thing, boy. Where you get that from? I don't know about human trafficking, me not about sex trafficking.
So how can you spot and identify perpetrators and children who are victims of trafficking? Many victims who are children do not look like under 18 years old. Child victims often move escorted around alone or in small groups. They also live in shared and even packed rooms and have very little clothing and belongings. Child victims are often seen with adults who are not their parents, their relatives, or their caregivers. Migrant children are often unaccompanied and separated from their parents. Child victims are often engaged in work that is not suitable for children. They are often deprived of their freedom to go to school, to play, and to enjoy being a child. Perpetrators have unexplained sources of income and possessions. They are businessmen and businesswomen running legitimate and illegitimate businesses. Perpetrators may appear to be the victim's friend, boyfriend, close relative, or employer.
We are the counter-trafficking unit of the Ministry of National Security, Trinidad and Tobago, safeguarding human life.
On International Women's Day, we celebrate women and girls around the world, and we applaud all they have achieved in the fight for equality. Women and girls have made great gains, demolishing barriers, dismantling stereotypes, and driving progress towards a more just and equal world. Yet they face immense obstacles. Billions of women and girls face marginalization, injustice, and discrimination, while the persistent epidemic of violence against women disgraces humanity. Our world still reflects millennia of male-dominated power relations, and progress is under attack with a fierce backlash against women's rights. At our current rate, legal equality is some 300 years away. We must move much faster. On International Women's Day, we stand with women and girls fighting for their rights, and we commit to accelerating progress. This year's theme, Invest in Women, reminds us that ending the patriarchy requires money on the table. We must support women's organizations on the front line, and we must invest in programs to end violence against women and to drive women's inclusion and leadership in economies, digital technologies, peace building, and climate action. This all depends on unlocking finance for sustainable development so that countries have funds available to invest in women and girls. We also need to increase the number of women leaders in business, finance, central banks, and finance ministries. This can help drive investments in policies and programs that respond to women and girls' needs. Women's rights are a proven path to fair, peaceful, prosperous societies. It is good for us all. Together, let's take urgent action to make it a reality, and I thank you.
Eye on Dependency with Garth and Natasha.
Reality radio, at its best, where every life is a biography.
Sundays at 10 a.m. and exclusively on 95.5 FM.
And streamed live on the Eye on Dependency Facebook page and YouTube channel.
Thank you so much for staying with us. This is Eye on Dependency. We are talking about domestic abuse in light of International Women's Day, which was commemorated yesterday. Thank you so much for tuning in on I-95.5 and on our Facebook and YouTube streams. And of course, we have in studio a survivor of domestic abuse, Akenna Kublal, who has been blowing our mind. God can tell you, we kind of lost for words in a sense, but because I think what is so remarkable to us is that there are still religious organizations in 2024 who have not been able to take a stand on an issue like domestic abuse and are not protecting the victims of this abuse and holding the abusers accountable. I mean, even if we just look at the law as it is written, anybody who has confessed or who has indicated this is happening to me, any sane and rational person would either prescribe counseling or therapy or make a report to the police. If you are concerned about this person's welfare and safety, that is the one of or two things that you should do, not tell them to pray about it. I mean, how is that conscionable? How is that, going to solve the deep-rooted issue that is at play here? So,
folks, no, before I feel like I would need counseling after this program. That's how I'm feeling right now. Because this program should continue at some point because you have so much more to share.
Yeah.
What freaks me out, folks, is that we actually have people out there who would look down and frown on what Akina is doing, trying to save other people from becoming victims.
Yes.
And if you're a victim or you're a potential one and you listen to this broadcast this morning.
Or if you are in an abusive marriage right now.
Yes, listen to Akina and let her tell you her story. Listen to her story and see what you can get out of it. But what she's doing is a brave thing here this morning.
Yes.
And you come from a community, Akina, that will frown on you for doing this?
Yeah. Like I mentioned, even with Kamika's, because I always say it's continued work. When Kamika started, she would sometimes things that I would share with her and say, girl, I went through this. She would say, yes, I went through that too. So you're often made to feel like you should stay quiet. And then you start to ask yourself, maybe it's really a spirit to have me talking like this, because you're told that as well. That
it's not you talking to the spirit?
No, I can't speak for every other woman, but I know that I've heard women be talked about that if you complaining about something, she's a witch sent to destroy this and that, or she's a Jezebel, the devil sent that Jezebel to this and that. So you must not speak up about issues that are happening. You must not, I over the years of me just coming out and share my story, a lot of women, I'm talking about pastors' wives, worship leaders' wives, women that I looked up to in the church and stuff would be in my inbox and would say, Akina, I could call you, and they call me and they tell me everything that they're going through with the person that they're going through it with. And I know these men, but of course I can't reveal that I know, but they feel safe sharing it with me because I came out with mine. So a lot of the women who will never come out and say, I am going through what Akina is going through, will share it directly with me. And that for me has been, I think, one of the toughest things that I've had to deal with, because people do not come out publicly to stand with me, but they will share that they're going through the very same thing privately. And there are times I wouldn't lie where sometimes I just want to be like, I just go in and say that so-and-so going through this too. But then I have to remember that I want to also protect
Did they tell you why
well.
they choose to continue going through it? Did they tell you why?
No, but I also have to remember that I too was once at that point.
Right.
When I was hiding and quiet and I didn't feel ready yet to share. And I feel like each survivor or victim has a breaking point where something has to happen in their life that would make them say enough is enough. For me, my breaking point was vitiligo and my children getting older and having hearing them say that, Mommy, you're staying for me, because I always used to say that I will stay until. So for my eldest daughter, I'll stay when SEA finish, or when this finish, or when that finish, or when we do this, when we do that. And it will always be when. But when I had some of those conversations with my older daughter, and she was like, Mommy, you want to stay and I actually want you to leave. I was like, wait, I stayed for the children and I'm doing them worse than...
No, the children are witnessing this abuse as well?
My older daughter was the one who really witnessed a lot of it, because remember, the younger one, the abuse would have stopped when my dad got involved, and she was a baby then.
Right.
She witnessed a lot of the verbal abuse, the cursing out, the financial abuse, which still continues, because that was the one that continued when he tried to leave. The cutting off from everything.
Yeah.
But my older daughter, she would have experienced a lot of the physical abuse. And I give God thanks that I got her in therapy at a very early age. And we talk a lot. The therapist commended me. He's like, Mom, the fact that you talk, people always feel like talking is a bad thing. But the fact that we talk a lot about things has helped her tremendously. She also goes to a school that is very feminist. So like yesterday, she was quarreling about Miss World. Yeah. Saying that the show already objectifying women and this and that.
Yes.
So
No, but you every time you speak, a question comes into my head, and then you speak, and then another question comes, and keep pushing them back. I have so much to ask you, Akina. There's so much that you can teach Trinidad and Tobago. That I just don't know where to begin. But there's a lively discussion going on Facebook right now. And somebody asked a question, Natasha, and I think one person commented that some women want to leave, but they can't because of certain circumstances.
Yes.
So let's go to Beth and let's hear what Akina has to say here. Have to say about that.
It's funny because today's Sunday. This could have been Friday. Friday, I was having a conversation with a woman who called me. Just again, like I say, I think because I went public with my story, a lot of people come to me to share theirs for advice.
Yeah.
And she said, Akina, I want to leave, but I'm waiting until I get back on my feet. This man helping me pay bills. And I told her, I said, honestly, I understand because that was a mistake that I made. Now, people might say a mistake you made, you should leave from the time you want to leave. In Trinidad and Tobago, we do not have resources for women who want to leave and start over.
Correct.
Let's hear what Beth has to say. Shortman, go to
Yes.
stick right there because what you said, Beth talk about that too.
F and G.
F and G. Let's go. Listen to this, folks.
One of the main things that I've been talking about and that I did with just about every one of my clients is what I call a safety plan. With a safety plan, what you're looking at is to think of things like, okay, if I need to run out of the house, what do I need? Have a bag prepared. A couple outfits, it has your driver's license, it has some money in it. Do you need your birth certificate? If you're looking to divorce, do you need your marriage certificate? What are my bank account numbers? If I have children, I need clothing for them. Do I have an extra set of car keys? Is there somebody I can call with a key word so they know things are really bad right now and I need help? Do I need to teach the children key words and what they need to know and that we're going to be leaving, Because even if dad's drunk and a little out of it, he's usually not so out of it that he doesn't realize, oh, wait, they're all running out. But if they're organized and prepared to run, I had clients who put keys under the car like they had a magnetic thing and they could put a key to the car there. Is your family prepared for you to show up on their doorstep? Because the one thing we know, whether it's Trinidad, Tobago, the U.S., or Europe, there's not enough shelter space. There are not nearly enough shelters, so it's about finding alternatives. Also, your safety plan doesn't just need to be about that moment. Let me start planning for the future. Can I try and put some money aside? I understand there is, a lot of people who don't have a lot of money, but can I just put a little bit aside? Do I have any way of getting any type of education? Can I take a computer class? Is there anything I can do to better myself before I try and get out of here? Can I go to the library? There's lots of great books. It sounds like a simple thing to do, but go to the library, educate yourself. There's research on domestic violence there. Education equals power. Education equals power. I can't say that. The one thing every victim, I will tell you, they know their abuser. They know his tactics. They know when he's going to do what a lot of the time. So they'll know when a good time might be to leave or to not leave. I did a lot of hotlines, and they needed to know, what are my options? What are my options? Who can I call? Who can I go to? And what I would suggest, get hotline numbers for people. Who can they call? Where can they go? Because it may not be the police that they want to go to. It takes a battered woman an average of 7 times of leaving, going back, leaving, for them to finally leave. So maybe one time they leave, they get some information from the police. Another time they leave, they speak to someone like me. Another time they hear your radio show. Let her build that and let her leave when she can and is ready to leave. Know your abuser and know who you're giving the information to. Don't tell his sister, even though she may have been your best friend. Blood is always thicker than water. Don't tell his mother. I know that this may have been the most supportive person to you. Trust me, in my 13 years of doing this day in, day out, that is not the person to trust. I would not tell a lot of people. You certainly should tell at least one person, so that they do know what your plan is. But I wouldn't go around telling everyone. You may want to let your boss know. Look, a lot of times my clients have to leave their jobs, and that's hard. You may just want for the boss to know you're leaving, but not where you're going, because he could show up there. You don't want to put the boss in that position either. Just think about who he might pressure or not pressure, and her safety should be the paramount concern, and the children at all times, but her especially.
So again, that was Beth Feder from an interview we did in 2010 talking about the leave, the exit from a relationship, and what are some of the things that a woman or a man need to think about to have a plan and to not, again, not trust very many people. Yes, she did talk about, the importance of speaking to people about what you're going through, but when you're planning to leave, that is something that you need to have one or two people that you tell, because of the fact, as I mentioned earlier, the fact that when a woman leaves an abusive relationship, she is at the highest risk. So you have to be very cognizant of who the people are that you're telling that you're going to leave, so the abuser will be able to use his manipulative tactics to get information as to where you are and where you will be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that she spoke about people and, who you share it with.
Mm-hmm.
And we were chatting with Gary, and I was just sharing the story about his mother who gave her life to the church, and then in the end, they were not there for her. It has been something that has blown my mind within the past, I would say maybe 4 years, as to how my community and circle has dwindled. Just this morning, remember when you called me this morning, so I was chatting with somebody.
Yes.
She's also a victim of abuse, much grown than me, and she said she dreamt me last night, so she called me to tell me the dream. So I was telling her about what I have to do today, and if she's online, she would know that I'm talking about her. And she was telling me too that when she left her relationship, she remained with one friend. And it's the same thing with me. I probably remained with one or two friends that I could really say are friends. Because the people that knew what I was going through, I'm talking about the core people that was there, that was giving me advice, people that saw things, people that, in the end, they befriended him. Because he went to them and he said that, he has changed and he gave his life to the Lord. And again, I'm not discrediting that is not true. It probably is. But these people, because he now had said that, and I continued to maintain my boundary then, that, okay, I understand, I respect that, but that is not a reason for me to go back. I am not taking that word for it, because I don't know that you would never hit me again. I don't know that.
And based on your experience, there's no reason for you to believe him.
Yeah, it's like when we went through the pandemic and they say, okay, COVID, not around still, but still wear your mask. You still have to practice wisdom. I still have to maintain my safety.
How was that? But he would have still, because of his nature of his job, I think he would have still been working, but during COVID, so you all weren't locked down together, really?
No. I was at home, but he was still kind of working, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So that wasn't there. And then by that time, the abuse had really kind of, fizzled out because of what had happened with my dad and that kind of thing. And then he was on a spiritual journey. But what really led me to... Is my phone?
Yeah, it's on now.
What really led me to coming to that end was when I lost my job in 2021 during COVID and all of that too. I was one of the companies that went through the whole thing, and I had an injury at the time to my knee, and I said, hey, I'm tired and I don't think I could go back to work right now. And he said, if you leave that job, that's it, don't come and ask me for anything. And that was not him hitting me, but it was a blow to me. It was like I had a rewind in my mind. You know, like sometimes you're watching a movie and they go back in the past. It's like I got it's like I got a 5-second rewind of my life from age 17 to in my 30s, of the fact that, wait a minute, I took all this abuse, all this infidelity, all this pressure, my teenage years, my 20s, my everything. And then the one time in life that I ask you to be there for me, you're like, no. And that was my tipping point to realize that as much as I was told that I could change this person and I can get this person to have this great story, here he was still not practicing even what the church told us, which was for better or for worse, for richer or for poor, to support me now when I was the one supporting the family all these years. You know, so...
You know, we have not even touched on your book. and you know, we're going to do a book launch for you here. Again, a relaunch, so to speak.
Okay.
So that people can, because there are people out there listening to you who identify with you right now. I'm sure of that.
Absolutely.
And I want to say to you talk about friends, we too have experience. Natasha, no different, you know, she's talking, but she accepted me into her life despite against some advice, you know, including her mother.
Yep.
And this is why I want to pay tribute to I tell Natasha this in private too, so that I'm showing off in public here, that I am grateful to have her in my life. She's a phenomenal woman. And just like Wayne Chance, deceased Wayne Chance, his wife too went against, and she was in church too,
Yes.
heavy in the church. As a matter of fact, her father was a pastor.
Yes.
And she defied all the odds, and now she has inherited vision and mission from her husband today. And Natasha, I walked out of prison, you know, and ended up meeting Natasha some years later, and that is what really was my guiding light to where I am today. Now this program is 22 years old. Because of Natasha, I could not have done it without her. And there was no abuse. Yes, we have our fallouts and arguments like everybody else. Don't like, you know, understand the fact that she supports Arsenal and all these, you know, but she has brought a lot to my life. And I think tribute should be paid to women like her too in our country, who would take a, you know, try to take an individual or build an individual and guide him in the right direction. It's because of Natasha I walk in the straight and narrow for the last 35 years. Gary,
but I must
could you talk to these guys next door, come on, please?
Aye.
Come on, what it is? I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen,
Yes.
to break stride here like this in this kind of, you know, brang way, but this is ridiculous. And you know, we have a very important discussion going on here, and to know that.
But just to interject, Garth, I appreciate you saying that, and from my perspective, yes, I went against the advice of my parents and siblings and all of that. But had I noticed any red flag pop up, I would have been out of there too sweet, and I know that I would have had the support to do so. That is, I think that's the difference with a lot of women. And I know that I would have been supported in that decision.
Yes.
And thankfully, you know, nothing like that ever came up. But I think that support, especially from the women in my life, I could have relied on them to give me that counseling and support if it was necessary. And unfortunately, it is so unfortunate and sad that women have not been able to resolve their own issues and continue to perpetuate the cycle of abuse.
Yeah, and
in other women's lives, you know.
Father Stott, good morning to you, and I hope you're listening to this and help pray for these folks who feel abuse is normal, and you know. So and I want to say, you know, to pay homage to all the women out there who have been battling. You know, you see you all normal looking.
Yep.
Going about your daily business, but you have to go back home to an abusive home. That's probably not easy to live with.
Yeah, I've sometimes, like I said, when people reach out to me, I would be like, I can't believe that you all look so good. You know, you look so nice, you're the perfect couple. But that's how people used to look at me. You know?
Yeah, Harry and Meghan and all the, you know,
Well,
the church. You know, listen, if you're just joining us, you're listening to Dependency, and you know, if you just join us,
of all people.
You know, you know, you can teach women out there how to walk away and how to believe in yourself and love yourself. In the end. So, when we come back, but you could tell us a little bit about your book between some calls.
Yeah.
If you have any calls for Akina this morning to give us some love, and continue your lovely comments on Facebook. Remember, those of you on YouTube, please remember to like and subscribe to, you know, to our channel. Please, please, please.
Yes.
Help us out here. Like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And those of you on Facebook, we welcome you. Those of you listening on radio, you know, hey, thank you so much for showing Akina some love here. And so the situation is now, what's the present situation now? What's the relationship like?
Well, right now I feel like on my end, my focus is the children. I try my best. I would love for them to have a good relationship with their father, whatever that might look like, but I also have to be mindful of the fact that they too would have seen certain things. And young girls and women today are not the young girls and women of yesterday.
Absolutely.
You know, so they have a lot of tit for tat where you know, they would tell him about things he doesn't necessarily like it, you know. And again, like I said, I think too, maybe they're getting it from me. Here I am, all these feminist things, talking about these things, you know, so. But my goal right now as it pertains to the relationship is just trying my best to make them have a good relationship. No thanks to the family courts and the system in Trinidad and Tobago. We are still about 4 years now, going into 4 years of waiting for certain things to be settled.
In terms of the divorce proceedings?
Yeah, in terms of, you know, the assets and all these things.
And you have to wait a long period for that to happen.
Yeah, you have to wait on that if the parties don't want to settle.
So why they do that? They give you enough time to change your mind, or is that the system is so backed up?
I feel like they give you too much time to change your mind. I think the family court is designed for peace. They try their best, you know, maintain peace and this and that, and it's just a system where everybody's hands just tied. It's not the lawyer's fault. It's not. I don't even feel it's the judge's fault. I don't even know. It's just a whole system. Just seems to be pretty chaotic to keep people in this web of hope. You know?
And limbo.
Yeah, and limbo, because how could we get you to mediate and this and that? But not everybody could mediate. Some people just have to. When I talk to my friends sometimes in the States about this, they're like, what? That's still going on? Because out there it's just a matter of no, bam, 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 you get your divorce, this, that, you know?
Yeah.
Here it's so much technicalities and all kind of process that you have to go through.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy.
622-3937, 622-3937. Let's say hello to Akina, you, the Dependency family. You heard her story. If you just joined, you're late, you missed a lot. And you can actually go back to our Facebook and YouTube channel at the end of the program, so you can hear the program from the beginning. Believe me, I am really lost for words. And this program today, this interview today, you know, it proves to me that you never stop learning about people and life, and you know, the way you would expect that the church, or some churches I should say, believe in protection of their flock, and to know that a woman is being beaten, and you can tell a woman, hey, pray about it, but don't leave. That's mad. I can't support that. I'm sorry. Hello, good morning. Cannot and will not support that.
Good morning, Natasha.
Good morning. Oh gosh, we lost you there. Please try us again.
Serious?
Oh gosh.
Sounded like a phone cut.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning to Akina and Mr. and Mrs. I made a point this morning that I have to tune in and listen to this, because you see, this domestic violence and abuse on women, that went way back. And it is still part of the culture in some homes.
Yes.
And it has to cut out. And I heard this goodly pastor in a wedding ceremony talk about the modern day woman who move away from the Bible and rebelling against the husbands. He's surprised if there are more murders. I say, Lord have mercy. So you could imagine when these people counseling. These people, you could imagine?
I cannot. And what does the congregation feel when they hear this on the pulpit?
Tasha,
I wonder.
In this, when there was a co-worker who was in the wedding ceremony with me. We walked. I said, "Girl, what do you think about this?" She said, "It was good."
Look, Yvonne, thank you very much.
There's some more callers. Thank you,
Natasha.
Yes.
You all have plenty work, and that is that domestic violence is a disease from way back, and the church also, you know what, God joined together and what. No. And it takes strong women and women with good, who have self-worth and self-esteem to say no and remain strong and move on. I'll have a blessed one.
Thank you very much.
Where can we find your book? Akina, in the meantime, while we're preparing for your book launch here, we want to take that opportunity.
Somewhere in the bag there. I can't find it.
But
you can find them on Amazon, Barnes and Noble. Just type in my name anywhere, Akenna Kublal, anywhere books are sold.
Her name is spelled
Akenna Kublal.
Kublal. And well, Kublal is actually my married name. Somebody asked me the other day why I don't want to be with the person, but I want to keep the name. That's my children's name, and I'll keep the name.
That's a whole other conversation, because we have that battle between us two, because if you notice, I don't carry his name. That is by choice.
Right.
That is by choice. But
yeah, I mean, I too old to fight that. It don't say I have a marriage certificate, say that we married, so I
don't have time to go and change over all those things, and I want to keep the same name as my children, and that's my prerogative.
Yeah, no problem with that. And Nunes is a big family, so
yes,
you know, it's can't just discard him, but you can put his St. Clair at the end. Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you, Garth and Natasha.
Morning, my dear.
And to your guests. I must say, young lady, I want to salute you. You're a young lady who is courageous and resilient. In the face of all that you're going through, you came through smelling like a rose. Now, let me tell you this, to the church and the God that we serve, I know Jesus, the man of peace and love. And he will never allow us, nobody, whether man, woman, or child, to be abused. They talk about the Bible saying yes, about divorce and all that, but the Bible also speaks about being, to be wise as a serpent. When you see things happening, you are to take that gut feeling and act on it, to be wise. They're leaving out that part. They didn't talk about that part. Right? You don't want to reach to a stage where the person is murdered. And then what do they say? The blood, what we say that the blood is on their hands, because they did not allow their member of the church to live in peace and get counseling and what have you. You know? So the God that we serve is a beautiful, peace-loving God who would not condone that kind of thing. And they also tell us to be wise. Thank you, people. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Someone posted here, Cheryl Henry said, I remember years ago a woman told her best friend she was leaving her police officer husband in Superior. Her friend told the husband, he left the station, went home, killed his wife and killed himself. I remember that. And that is why Bess was suggesting about not telling anyone.
Yes.
You know.
Before we go, before we take another call, I wanted to repeat a question that Gary very eloquently asked off air. What is your relationship like with the church now? Now that after all that you have gone through.
It's funny, you know, sometimes people think you have to have a yes or no answer for everything. I think I'm very much I have a I don't know answer. I love the Lord. I'm still in that same place that I was as a young girl, where I felt as though, you know, I have some purpose. I don't know what that is. My relationship with God is solid, but these past few years has taken me on a journey to show me what I don't want to be. what I don't want to be a part of, and how much work there is to do still. And outside of even this conversation, I had someone very recently, my youngest daughter, took part in Kiddies Carnival, and the person told me, you have your daughter taking part in Kiddies Carnival, and then you say your children have a call on their life? So, outside of this domestic violence, I have just seen so many things attached to religion that don't identify with the person that I am.
Right.
That message of love, that message of peace, that message of hope and support. And I just haven't found a building or a place that carries that same message. So for now, I am trying to be the church.
Right.
Wherever you go, the Heavenly Father, wherever you go, that person above us is always there, you know.
Yeah. So I know coming out of today, somebody might message me, my inbox might be full with invitations, because, people always trying to persuade you that their church is not like that and their church is the best. And I know, and I don't want to leave here making every experience sound bad.
Yeah.
Because, for example, I remember in 2018, we had lost everything in our home, and it was a church that we were going to at the time that came and helped.
Mm-hmm.
But I've also seen where sometimes the help only comes in a perfect family unit. The minute that a woman says enough is enough, the help ceases.
That's just wrong. 622-3937. 622, good morning. Sorry about that. 622, good morning.
Good morning again, God. I was cut off, but whatever it is.
Sure, yeah.
As I know it growing up, when it is, to be intimate, you have to be consented. Not no man supposed to fall to be intimate with you. How could you enjoy something when it is you are being forced into? And some men that doesn't want to know because they hear this story all the time. They come home on heights. They come home smelling alcohol. They didn't have a bath, and they just want to braps on the wife and want the wife to give consent. When you go to the court, you hear all these kind of things. And I don't know what it is or how it is we can change some of these men with their thinking. But Gat and Natasha, I have to congratulate both of you for all the good work. Thank you ever so much. May we bless always.
You're welcome there. And if there are any other Akinas out there who wish to speak with us, please contact us. You know how to find us.
Yes.
And let's tell your story. You want to tell a story? Let's do it so we can save others. That's the whole plan. This is a prevention program, and we do interventions as well. But this is important for you out there listening. You do not have to believe in man and stay with a man or woman who is beating you up. You don't have to do it.
Don't
listen to the foolishness. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, God.
Morning.
I'm listening to your program as usual, Hazel Thompson Ahi.
Yes,
hey,
ma'am.
Mom. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Not too bad,
Nice to hear from you.
I just want to make a couple comments. Pastors don't know, and if they don't have the training and the education, they cannot give out what they don't have. They try the best they can. You remember some years ago, a pastor was engaging in counseling of both parties. The lady left to go to the bathroom, and the man followed her, and she was killed.
Yes.
You don't counsel both parties together. Of course, he did not know that. If you are, in fact, hoping to do any domestic violence training, then you must be aware of things of the doulas training sessions with the power and the control wheel, which gives you the whole range of all kinds of domestic violence scenarios. You must know about the equality wheel. So all of those things, we ought to be exposed. People, I keep saying, that there is so much out there. There's so much learning out there, and people are not always exposed. But they want to do the training. They want to help people, but they must first get the tools. So unless you have the tools, then you'll be spinning top in mud. I think pastors should stay far away from domestic violence victims when they come to them and refer them to people who can help them. Yep. But they don't do that. They want to help, but they may make more problems than
they solve.
Persons, yes, that they can solve. So remember, I don't think they're learning those things in theology school.
No.
So that we have to find some way, out there have been talking for years about all the various scenarios and what is done to help it. And please, do not for one moment think that a man cannot change. It happens. It happens. Another thing that people say, if a man hits you once, he will do it again. That is not necessarily so. I had a very upright public servant who was close to me, as close to his entire family. He hit his wife once. It was an injury. She was also a public servant, so she had to go to work with dark glasses for the longest while. That man was so ashamed of his behavior. It was totally out of character. And he's never done it again. And, you know, I hear people say, if he hit you once, run. You have to know the person. Is that part of the character? Is that something? No, he just came from a session where the boys were drinking up, you know, and he felt he was feeling amorous. And she said, no. And that's what happened. So there's so much out there to learn. And you hear there's a pastor on television in Bahamas. I was appalled. I was having my lunch. I put on the television. And you know what he was preaching? And this is now with a huge congregation. He was preaching to the whole of the Bahamas, very popular program, that a woman should not go to bed with panties on. She's out of order. And he was saying that. What is he saying? I mean, I am hearing this thing on national television, ZNS, and I could not believe it. Another pastor in the Bahamas was charged with rape. And every time that man went to court, a whole bevy of women followed him, and they were actually throwing words for the young victim. And he brought his wife saying, no. The sperm they found on the carpet there, it wasn't anything to do with me, with this girl. This was my wife. I mean, he did all the tests and so on, and the 16-year-old, I think she was. It was proven he was eventually, I think, convicted. But the fact is, women don't support women, and sometimes the people who should know in positions of authority, they don't know, they want to help, and I'm saying get the learning first, get the tools, and then you can help.
Thank you so much, because we're 1 minute away from 12 noon, so we have to go for the news, but you give me an idea listening to you, and we will communicate with you during the week, because we think you could, for a while now you have been commenting on these issues, and we would like to hear more from you, so we'll be in touch. Okay?
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. All right, so we have to wrap up, folks, because Akina, what do you want to say to yes, anybody listening to you out there?
I know that a lot of women are in the comments and stuff, and they're commenting me on being so strong and this and that, but just be gentle with yourself if they're going through this process. Don't look at where I am now and think that it happened overnight. It takes a while, and if it's taking a while, also don't feel guilty. Don't judge yourself or feel ashamed. It's all part of the process.
Yes. Okay, folks, we have to go. Major news up next. You will hear from Akina again, because she has her book that we want to help her promote, and so hope she could reach some women out there.
Plural.
All right? Take care, folks. Have a great week. Be careful out there, please. All of this happening, you know that. Major news up next with Mr. Daly now.
Good afternoon.
Broadcasting from Port of Spain, Trinidad, this is the most influential name in radio, I-95.5. Live local coverage you can depend on. This is News Center 5 at noon.
PNM blames the UNC for youth-related crimes in the country, but the opposition party hits back. 3 bodies in 3 days found in different locations. Oil spill cleanup in Tobago said to be progressing nicely. And security boost at the U.S. Embassy in Port-au-Prince, Haiti.